In education, we will be looking at three forms of privatization, or three ways in which privatization can happen. The first one is private provision. In this particular form, education is provided by private agencies, such as privately owned and managed schools or universities. So a group of individuals, or even a single individual or an existing organization, decides they need to provide education, and they begin their facilities of starting a school and provide education to those children that come there. They are privately managed. Government does not really have a control over them, and education begins to be rolled out to some of these students. This is private provision, providing education privately, not based on government funds or expenditures. It need not be provided through government-run institutions. Instead, private schools could be operated by religious groups, for-profit entrepreneurs, charities, or other interested parties. Now, when something like this happens, the private education institutions then become classified. You could have religious schools, and we have a lot of those in Pakistan. You can have not-for-profit schools. Very few of those exist. And then you can have, obviously, for-profit institutions, where these institutions are created with the idea of generating profits. How far, which one is good, only time will tell, research would tell. But the fact that these different forms of privately provided education exist must be acknowledged and seen to as to how far they are providing and filling the gap and making sure that children not in schools actually get in schools. Indeed, many families already prefer the private option and choose to forego the free public education systems. Now, even if the government education systems are free, which means there is no fees, the government also may provide textbooks and stationery and other facilities, parents are still more interested in the private education. The key question here is why? And the answer is primarily quality. It's the quality of education that is provided in the private institutions and in the government institutions that are very different. Not to say that all private institutions offer the best education. They definitely do not. But comparatively with the government institutions, private institutions offer a better alternative. So internationally, the proportion of students who are educated by private providers varies substantially. So not just in Pakistan, around the world, there are government institutions and there are private institutions. And around the world, in practically every country, parents prefer private institutions over government institutions, and the number of private institutions is increasing. The number of students enrolling in private institutions is increasing substantially. So the government will really have to step in and look at what they need to do in order to make education in their institutions also one of quality. For example, in the United States, approximately 11% of school-age children are in private schools, mostly at the elementary level. Now, in the developed world, cost of education is extremely high, and private education is very high. So 11% may seem like a small number, but in a developed country like the United States, this is seen as a large number of children going to private schools. And especially this is true at the elementary level. When you get to middle school and high school, costs increase, and so parents move then children back into the public sector institutions. In the Netherlands, the proportion of schools administered by private school boards is almost 70%. Comparatively now, the Netherlands is Europe. 70% of privately owned schools, large number compared with 11% in the United States. And these schools, public and private schools in the United States and in the Netherlands, do not all receive the same kind of government funding. Obviously, government funding goes more to the government schools, hardly any to the private schools. The private schools are required to raise their own money to do the necessary work that they need to do. Denmark has a system of publicly funded private schools that enroll about 2/3 of students. So about 66% of students in Denmark go to private schools, but these private schools are funded by the government. So there is privacy, but there is also government control in Denmark. In Belgium, about 50% of all student enrollment are in private schools. So it's about 50-50 in Belgium. Half students go to private schools, half students go to public schools. There is an equally broad mix of public-private provision in education, in higher education, especially in the Philippines, where 75% of students are enrolled in private universities. Certainly, when you look at cost of education, tertiary education is way, way more expensive. And so, to expect that the government will do all the funding even at that level is not very realistic. And so, in the Philippines, 75% of the university-bound students go to private universities. And in the United Kingdom and much of continental Europe, the proportion is almost zero, which means most of Europe, children go to public or government schools and institutions.